Okay, so these are notes 1.4. Back in Algebra 1, you know these more by the name stem and leaf plot. We just call them stem plots though here in this, but you can call them stem leaf, it doesn't really matter. So here's a problem for you. Science gets your heart beating. There are the resting heart rates of 26 ninth grade biology students here. We want to make a stem plot for it. We'll talk about what a split stem is in just a little bit, but a stem plot, we're going to make a little chart like this. If we look at these, it looks like the lowest number is a 40 something, then it goes 50 something, 60 something, 7 something, and 80 something. So we're going to start in the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s. Okay, so we want to include a key whenever we make these. Move this up a little bit so you can see the key. So if I do 4-8, that means that it's going to be 48. Okay, and that's our lowest number there, was the 48 right there. Okay, so that means 48. Now, if I go to the 50s, so it looks like in the 50s, let's see here. In the 50s, I only have this one, 55. Okay, the 60s, I have a lot more. So I like to do this off to the side a little bit, just to organize it, because it should go from lowest to highest numbers here, and we do want to repeat them if they happen. So we have a 60, a 61, a 63, a 62, a 64, 66, 66, 65, and a 68. Okay, I kind of ordered them there. I could have done it down here, but I wasn't quite sure how it would be. So that stands for 60. That would be the 61, the 62, the 63, the 64, 65, 66, 66, and 68. Okay, so now I go to the 70s. Okay, I have a 78, 78, 77, 78, 79. I have a 71, 72, and 75. A 70, a 74. 77, 74. So there's another 77, another 74. 70, another 70. 76. 71. Okay, so these are all my 70s there. So I have two 70s, two 71s, a 72, two 74s, 75, 76, two 77s, 78, and 79. Okay, then I go to my 80s. And the 80s, I have an 81 and an 86. 81 and 86. And there I have my stem plot. Okay. So from this, remember how we talked about the distribution, like describing the distribution. So if you think about socks, and I think about the shape for this, okay, so if I kind of turn it this way, I can see the distribution there. So it's fairly symmetrical, maybe skewed a little bit to the left, to the lower numbers, but fairly symmetrical. So I'll say fairly symmetrical. Okay, I wouldn't say there's necessarily any outliers there, so no outliers. The center, we could figure that out if we wanted to. We're going to talk more about that later. To find the median, we would find the middle number of all these. We'll talk about median a little bit next week. And then the spread, it's pretty condensed together, and if I had two things, I could see which one's more spread out than the other. Next week, we'll talk a little bit more about spread as well. Okay. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is a split stem graph or stem plot. So it's really the same idea as this, but you notice how we have all these 6s and all these 70s. So it might be better to kind of split that. So you notice right here, this is the same data that we were just looking at, the heartbeats, but they have 7, 7, 8, 8. And what they've done is just for, this is the upper 40s, lower 50s, which there weren't any, upper 50s, so 55 to 59, and then 60 to 64, and then 65 to 69, and then 70 to 74, 75 to 79, and then lower 80s and upper 80s. So that gives you a little bit more representation of how spread out it is. So that's called a split stem graph, a split stem. Okay? And then a back-to-back, I'll show you this example here of a back-to-back. So this is, actually, we're kind of doing this in class too. How many shoes are too many to own? So this is how many shoes some people own. So what they do here is they put the main stem. So 1 means like in the 10s and the 20s and the 30s, the 40s and the 50s. And then they put the numbers out for the females on one side and the males on the other. So this here would represent 0, 4, so 4 pairs. This here would be 22 pairs, 35 pairs, 38 pairs. And going the other way as well, this would be 13, 13, 13. So this is still the 10s column, and these are the 1s. 19 and 15, 24, 23, 23, 22, okay? 50, 50, and 51. So that is a back-to-back, so you can compare the males and the females. So if you want to describe the shape of these, I'd say females are fairly symmetrical. I'd say the males are skewed to the higher numbers. Most of them are down here, so if I turn it on its side, I can see that skew going off to the right side. Okay. The center, or outliers, these could be possible outliers. It doesn't seem like the females have outliers. C, center. The center of the males will be down here somewhere. The center of the females up here. So males are definitely lower than females in this graph. And then spread, the females are definitely more spread out than what the males are as well. So that is what you're going to be working on section 1.4.